U.S. drug overdose deaths rose above 100,000, but China denied any role in the fentanyl production.
250 China companies could be delisted from U.S. stock market and go to Hong Kong. Hong Kong will try to rival Wall Street, but will it succeed?
How bad is Omicron virus? Maybe not as bad as you thought. We will have a doctor to bring you the full scoop. Welcome to Wei and Kathy Show. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
And I'm Kathy Zhang.
And so before we proceed, we just tell you that on the second half of the show will be on the Safe Chat.
Right, and it's a very, informative information, but we have to do it on Safe Chat. So please, if you have not registered on the Safe Chat, now is the chance to do that.
Yep. And I did not even mention the doctor's name. So you understand the reason. So, but anyways, it's very good interview and very good information to get the fullness of it. Remember to download and install SafeChat, or you can go to the web link and the URL. Our staff, please post that. All right. So actually, the first two pieces of news is pretty major. It all has to do with China, but we think it's very worth knowing. Okay. So first, the CDC data revealed over 100,000 deaths from the drug-related reason. Okay, in just 12 months from April last year to April this year. So this is not completely news. Okay, new news. It is news of last month. Okay, but that was a 29% increase from the last 12 months. The drug-related death has been fueled mainly by fentanyl, reaching a total of 93,000. So pretty much 93% of all the drug overdose deaths is due to the fentanyl. And the numbers have nearly doubled since 2014, when about 50,000 people died from this drug.
The Drug Enforcement Administration in 2020 produced a study that revealed, quote, China remained the primary source of fentanyl and fentanyl-related substances, end of quote. And President Joe Biden imposed the sanctions against 4 Chinese pill makers by executive order on this Wednesday, and an individual named Chen Fat Yip, described as one of the largest, if not the largest, producer of anabolic steroids in the world. Yip is a 68-year-old resident of the now infamous city of Wuhan, allegedly shipped millions of dollars worth of fentanyl ingredients to customers all over the world.
Yeah, one seizures by the law enforcement is a 24 kilogram of fentanyls. Okay, attributed to this Mr. Yip, and 1 kilogram of fentanyl could kill 500,000 Americans. So we're talking about, the total dose, they could kill basically 12 million people. This is as bad as this drug is. And the Chinese Communist officials and the state media responded angrily on Thursday to such sanction. They said, the spokesperson of the State Department of China said, we urge the U.S. to respect the fact and look more to itself for the causes of the fentanyl abuse problems. And this spokesperson, Wang Wenbing, also said China's effort and achievement on drug prevention are evident to the international community. All right, so that's basically the very usual rhetoric. When they say something, they say everybody know. They say everybody know.
Right.
And
but contrary to these protestations from the Chinese Communist Party, drug abuse experts have described China's mass production of fentanyl as a deliberate chemical weapon attack on the United States. And the CCP government boasts of passing tough laws against the fentanyl production, but the massive Chinese surveillance state and the brutal security apparatus seemingly do nothing to actually prevent production and international distribution of the drug.
Yep, this is the basically another. They even call it the opium war. Opium war
against the U.S.
Against the U.S. And opium war is it's a war in the 19th century where Great Britain waged against Qing dynasty of China back then. It was viewed as a humiliation of the China, and now now they call this an opium war against the U.S. So. Okay, next thing, let's move on to this Wall Street versus Hong Kong. And now, why? So basically, this story goes like this. This Thursday, the SEC, okay, Security and Exchange Commission, ruled that a China company in the U.S. markets will be delisted in 2 to 3 years if they do not review the influence or control by the Chinese government and do not provide auditing data to the U.S. authority. Okay, there's a story behind this. Let me just roll back so that we know the entire storyline. Okay, first let's look at October 2001. If you were around, okay, at that time, one of the largest energy company called Enron, a Texas company, was found that commit fraud in this booking, and then very quickly, the company went down to zero. The stock price from $98 to $1 in just a matter of 1 month. And then finally declared bankruptcy. Okay, at that time, its total asset is $62 billion, which became the largest bankruptcy case in the U.S. history. And then along with that, and who audited them? The Arthur Andersen, one of the 5 top auditing firms in the world, and went down with it, also declared bankruptcy. Just less than 1 year later, in the summer of 2002, the U.S. second largest long-distance telephone company called the WorldCom, okay, was found that to overstate its asset by over $11 billion. As an end result, quickly WorldCom declared bankruptcy, and at that time with an asset of $109 billion. So setting another record of the biggest bankruptcy in the U.S. history. As you recall, a lot of retirement fund, the fund from the city or the county, was deeply hurt because they trust such big company. They put their money in there, and then as a result, the Congress quickly passed a new law called the Public Company Accounting Reform and Investor Protection Act, which is called the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, or even short called the SOX Act. It put a requirement on all U.S. public companies, their board directors and the management, and also the public accounting firms that audit them. Well, the 11 new criteria, also many of them also apply to private held companies. The idea is to prevent the cases like Enron and WorldCom from happening again. After that law was passed, a agency called it's a nonprofit organization funded by U.S. government. It's called the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. PCAOB was set up and work under the SEC. Okay, and that company is responsible for all companies, public companies who who are traded in the U.S. stock market, and regardless of where they are located. Okay, at that time there were a good number of Chinese companies in the U.S. stock market, and then none of them provide thorough and required auditing data. So what to do with it? At that time it was 2013. Okay, and the PCAOB spent a lot of they said enormous amount of time and resource negotiating with the Chinese authority and reach a agreement of which is described in the MOU, okay, Memorandum of Understanding, saying that in the next few years, Chinese company will meet the requirement by providing the standard and the required auditing data for the operations of those Chinese company. What happened then? Nothing happened. Just like how they cheated on the the World Trade Organization, WTO. They negotiated very, very seriously. They signed a name, appeared to be serious. After they signed it, They forget about the matter. They do not conform to what they promise, meet what they promise in that MOU. Okay. However, after that MOU was reached, the U.S. government, Obama administration at that time, just basically opened up the door of New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq. Come over, you can go public here, whenever you want, and you don't have data, you don't have a book to prove that you're honest. Well, we got an MOU. Let's give you time. Okay, time goes by, and then Congress is not happy with this. So in the 2019, Congress started with the Marco Rubio, the senator, start to draft a new law called the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act, and as an amendment to the SOX Act. So the content is forced disclosure foreign jurisdiction upon those companies, public companies from foreign countries. And also those companies will be banned from the US stock market from trading and delisted from the exchange if they are not able to face a thorough auditing for 3 years. Okay, that law actually moved in the Congress pretty slow. All right, it's like a 20-year-old problems, and so it's not that urgent. There's more urgent issues. However, in April 2020, there's this company called the Lucky Coffee, and Kathy should know that it's called 瑞幸咖啡, which is just suddenly come from nowhere and grow just in a phenomenal speed, shoot to the sky, and it came to win the public in the Nasdaq. But soon, in that very month, April 2020, it was found it commit fraud in its booking, overstating its sales to of around $310 million in that year. So after the news got out, the stock, the price of the stock plunged by 80%. Instantly, finally, it was delisted from the Nasdaq. That became generated public outcry over this, smaller scale for Enron/WorldCom issues again. So the Congress moved really fast the next month. Very quickly, the Senate passed this law, this Holding Foreign Company Accountable Act. And then the House in the next month also passed it, both on completely full consent. Okay, and the President Trump signed that into law. So basically, the SEC's announcement this week, actually yesterday, is basically according to this law. It says for these 248 Chinese companies listed on the U.S. stock exchange with a total market capitalization of $2.1 trillion, you will have to leave if you do not submit your book. Now, you may want to ask questions. So why don't they submit a book? They went public in the U.S. stock market, in New York Stock Exchange. Every company open up their book for auditing. Why cannot do that? Why can they not do that? They just cannot, because Chinese government doesn't allow them to do so. They say this is our data, it's our state secret, and they just don't allow them. So they don't have any choice. As an end result, they'll have to leave the U.S. stock exchange. And you may ask that, what's the loss? What's the shock? And what's the damage that will be done to our stock exchange? Very little. All right, $1.2 trillion. Actually, it's not that much since all those the news, came out, and China start to crack down on their own high-tech company in the U.S. Alibaba, the biggest Chinese company, its stock price dropped from $210 to $120. $43 loss of 43% loss of value. So if you do the calculation, the Chinese company altogether, their net worth is only less than 2% of the U.S. stock exchange. So it's not a much a big deal. The issue is this, okay? After they quit from the U.S. stock exchange, they're going to move to Hong Kong. Okay, Hong Kong is in the hand of the CCP. They're going to move into that. And what's the implication of that? Okay, the implication actually is quite interesting. And remember that Kathy reported to you this Di Dongsheng, right? This
scholar,
how CCP work with the Wall Street Wall Street companies and through them to buy the U.S. politicians, because Wall Street they chase for after money, and the CCP has enough money for them to make if they work with the CCP, and then in turn they corrupt our administration, our Congress. and administration to a much bigger extent. But now, after this is really just separation, they kick out all those companies, and the first Wall Street will have much less connection with the CCP.
Then they would have less influence then?
Yeah, they will have less influence. I won't say they won't have any influence, but it will be much, much less. One step more is this. CCP will position Hong Kong Stock Exchange to compete with Wall Street. So they will become rivals. Okay, much less chance. Now they need to compete for every company who's going to public to come to New York or go to Hong Kong. So so they become rivals. They won't be that friendly and have this.
So that may not be a bad thing for the U.S.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. When you cut the money, because for the capital, all the capitalists, they chase after money. CCP, they can use that to allure them and corrupt them. So this is a good news, and I would say. And there's another topic of whether Hong Kong Stock Exchange will be able to rival like a New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. Far from being the case. I won't go into the detail because we don't have enough time there.
Yeah, but obviously, they're going to get the full support from the Chinese Communist government.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, but however, it's much smaller. It's just very small stock exchange, rivaling our American stock exchange. So, but what do we know? This is 2 years ago. I was in D.C. Right. I spoke at a occasion at a meeting conference held by the Committee on Present Danger, China, okay, CPDC. All right, their goal is this is a group of activists, and led by the Deputy Secretary of the Defense of Reagan, and then basically their goal is to sever the tie of the financial tie between these two countries. Their hope is so that U.S. company will not invest in China, and China company do not come to the U.S. They try very hard. They couldn't get it, get much distance. But now this is it's a Chinese government saying that we don't open the book. Now SEC turn around, then you get out. So in that simple step, this whole thing that CPDC tried to accomplish, which it could not, got accomplished. So yeah, you may not read this as a headline news in the major medias, but I would let you know that this is major news. Okay, this is one extra layers of security for our country. And I have to tell you that among those 250 companies, Chinese companies, many of them you can estimate that they are expected to commit fraud. That's also part of the reason they don't open up the book. Yeah. So anyway, our stock exchange will be more solid, more honest, and more reliable, so that we don't lose money, because of such fraud from China. All right, that's that news.
Yeah. So there are good news, right?
Yep, this is good news.
Okay. So how bad is the Omicron variant?
It looks pretty bad.
Yeah. When you read
headlines.
Yeah, read headlines, it would tell you, a feeling, but exactly how it is. I interviewed an expert yesterday, a real expert. I will not say his name here because he's deplatformed in most of the social media. So as you could understand, but so please, move on along with us to Safe Chat. And I think it's, the information he shared, not only about Omicron, but also related issues are very, to me, it's eye-opening. So, okay, let's move over to Safe Chat.
All right. See you over there. Don't leave. Follow our link. Let's go to Safe Chat. Let's say 1, 2, 3.